Hey everyone, welcome to Roo and Hammer. We have a very special episode tonight. We're going to do a full review of the Warriors 2021 season. Mate, Hammer, how are you going?
Good, mate. Yeah, doing very well. Just had an hour of listening to Brad and Richie doing their show live from New Zealand. And, we're very lucky. We've got Brad and Richie from the Stand Off joining us tonight, and we've got Apai from Hold the Ball. So looking forward to having a bit of a chat about season 2021 for the Warriors. Should be a bit of fun.
Welcome, guys. Yeah, cheers. Thanks for joining us.
Cheers. Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
No worries. We'll get straight into it, eh? First things first, I suppose. Start with you, Robbie. What do you think of the grand final, mate?
It was a fantastic game. It's great to see a close game. There was some key moments there. One in particular, key moment that pretty much went a long way to deciding that game. But yeah, it's good to see it go down to the wire. You got to take your hat off to the Panthers. I think they really deserved that win. They were the better team for probably most of this year. Hit the skids a little bit in the back end of the year, but they did it the hard way. I mean, they had a series of tough games, and I think, like we've said last couple of weeks, those tough games that they had leading up to the grand final really paid off because they were battle hardened, and we kind of knew if it got down to a grind, and the Panthers were going to be strong favourites. So yeah, hats off to them and to our former coach Ivan Cleary. Congrats on getting a premiership.
Yeah, what do you make of it, Apai?
Yeah, look, for myself personally, I thought it was a gritty game. Sort of just going off what Rob said as well. I think Penrith Panthers deserved to win, but one thing I liked was just their finals run. You know, losing to Souths, then going through the Eels and then Storm, just again showing that their gritty sort of defense was, I think, clinical in all their games, and I think the reason why they won. So no, it was good.
Yeah, Richie.
Yeah, like the boys said, much like they said, I think it was the Panthers definitely deserved it, and I think they were in good stead, having gone through last year and having gone through and lost one. And I think actually this year maybe they were set up a bit better because, they had a bit of adversity and they had a few more players selected for Origin. So they had to sort of grind out a few games and I think it gave them some fortitude leading into the final series. And I think it set them up nicely to go through and really show their defensive steel and it took them all the way.
As a thug front rower, Brad, you would have loved the fact that the game was pretty much decided by the men in the middle through defence.
Yeah, and the usual suspects like James Fisher-Harris and that, I think they really stood up. We're always going to hear about the fairies in the back line doing all the hard work, So it's good to see guys like Fisher-Harris and that actually do a lot of the hard yards. I think he was a contributing factor to how good they were this year. And yeah, guys like Kurt Capewell and all that as well. Rabbitoh's side is, I think, Cam Murray played really well too. And yeah, the fairy tale would have been good to see Rabbitohs win and send Benji out, but ultimately the most dominant team this year was the team that kind of took it out, bar their little hiccup after Origin.
Yeah, for me it was. I'm the same. My heart was on the Rabbitohs, mainly for Benji to go out a winner. But, had no qualms in the Panthers winning. They were the better team on the day, no doubt. Poor old Cody Walker's got to live with that intercept pass for the rest of his... It'll be on highlight reels for years to come. It'll be like Skinny Byrne having to live down that tackle from...
or Ben Hunt.
Sattler back. Or Ben Hunt in the restart in... 2017? 15. Yeah, so for me, the unsung hero of that Panthers win, though, I thought was Api Coruscant. I thought he was fantastic in the middle of the park. He had a couple of line breaks and really worked hard out of dummy half. So, yeah, congratulations to the Penny Panthers. Congratulations to the Cotto Benji Marshall, who announced his retirement today. So we wish him well in his retirement. Obviously not going to do a swan song with the Warriors next year in Redcliffe. Had enough. He decided he doesn't want to go out a grand final winner, so he's choosing to retire now.
You're lost, Benji.
let's get into the reason why we're here tonight, the Warriors season, and we'll go all the way back to the beginning of the season, and we kind of broken the season up to discuss in a couple of key areas, and the first area we'll talk about is our start of the season, the first 6 games that we had. We had 3 wins and 3 losses, which I think prior to the start of the season, if someone had said after 6 rounds we'd have 3 wins and 3 losses, we probably would have taken that. But in saying that, after playing those games, I was kind of a little disappointed. We really should have been 5 wins and 1 loss, or probably 4 wins and 2 losses, depending on that Canberra game. But I've got some notes here, but I'll throw to you boys first. Brad, what did you make of the first 6 games? There was the 19-6 win against the Titans. Then we lost a 20-16 in a tight one to the Knights. We got that 34-31 win against the Raiders after being down by 24-4 or something at halftime. The 32-12 defeat to the Roosters was probably the only game that was clearly not a contest. We were never in that contest. Then we had the 1-point loss, the 13-12 loss to Manly, and then that 20-14 win against the Dragons. So look at that opening stanza of the season.
Yeah, a bit like you. Before the round started, I thought we would have the wood over the Titans, Knights, and Dragons. Raiders, Roosters, Sea Eagles, I was a bit iffy on. As it went on, Sea Eagles, I was more and more confident. But yeah, a bit disappointed to end on not only 3 wins, 3 losses, but to it was just a bit disappointing that they started to look like they were getting worse, especially that Sea Eagles loss. I think that one really hurt. But yeah, after 6 rounds, it was still reachable. It was still okay to come back from. It wasn't like the rot had set. But yeah, I think there was a lot of learning that could have been done or should be done after those early stances, especially against the Knights as well.
Yeah, for me, that was the big one. Because I was at that game, luckily enough, and you kind of just felt that it was going to be – Rob even said to me, Bradman Best is going to do something here to win this game, and that's pretty much what it turned out. And then he used his Nostradamus ball. He messaged me when we were playing Manly, and he said, I can see what's going to happen here. Manly are going to score, and then DCE is going to kick a field goal, and that's what happened. So I kind of barred him from trying to predict what was going to happen, but it didn't work. He kept on doing it. Apai, what did you make at the start of the season, those first 6 games?
Yeah, look, the Titans game, I was pretty happy with it. You know, that result against, the Titans, I was happy. The Knights game, I was pretty deflated. Especially how we lost. I think Bradman Best in the last, 5 minutes, was it? 10 minutes sort of score that try, cut us open. Looking at the remaining sort of 4 games, Roosters, I guess for me, it was, even though we got beat really badly, I was still disappointed. I thought we could have shown more, but in saying that, Adam Van All-Black gets injured that game, so obviously that would have taken off a bit of weight there. Heading into that, just going back to that Raiders game, I absolutely enjoyed that game personally, only because we came back, but it sort of took me back to 2018 round 3, where we had that comeback win over them when Isaac Luke scores that, that try in like the last dying minutes. So it was good. And obviously Rodgers Tuivasa-Sheck saving that try. So it was sort of reminiscent there. But yeah, against much like Brad heading into the Manly game, I was pretty confident. Like I just thought we'd win. And obviously we didn't. We lost by a drop goal. So yeah, wasn't too happy. So overall though, look, it was okay. That's probably the best way to sort of sum it. It was all right. Yeah, could have done better.
Yeah. How about you, Richie?
So I think it was just the manner of the losses for me. I think, winning that first game the way we did against the Titans, who had a bit of hype about them leading into the season, kind of set us up as a nice feel-good game. We're off to a good start. But then the losses we had, like the one against the Knights that you guys touched on with Bradman Best at his damaging best down that left-hand side, then against the Manly Sea Eagles, they were just really disappointing losses. And the fact that the Sea Eagles had lost all of their games prior to playing us, made it even more disappointing. But then the wins we had were good, gutsy wins, I mean, the Titans, like I said, had a bit of hype around them leading into the season. great comeback against the Raiders when it looked like we were dead and buried. And then the Dragons game, they'd won 4 on the trot prior to us playing them. So I thought that was a good gutsy win. And like you said, Mark, I think if you said at the start of the season if we'd be 3-3 after the first 6, you'd probably take that.
Yeah. How about you, Robbie? What do you make, mate?
Yeah, mate. For me, that block of 6 games was bookended by 2 really good performances, and happened to be 2 games that we were at. Round 1 versus the Titans, and then round 6 at Cogra there against the Dragons. Probably two of our best wins for the season, and in between that, I mean, the Knights game was one of those ones where we were behind up until I think late. Maybe into the last quarter of the game, and looked like we'd done enough to win. You're thinking, oh yeah, we're going to get home, and then as you guys have said, Brad and Best weaved a bit of magic, and we went down. And then the Raiders one, look, this is one of those games where it was super entertaining, and it was like it was throwback to the Warriors like 01-02. Remember when we used to get those massive comebacks? I think it was one we had against Penrith back in 01 where we came from nowhere and just absolutely mowed them down. It reminded me of that, but. We have to mention the Raiders lost like 3 guys for HIAs in like the first 15 minutes or so. So if we hadn't have won that game, and we almost didn't, it would have been pretty bad. It could have been a lot worse. It wasn't for RTS's heroics right at the end there. And the Roosters game, we were never really in that. I think we led 12-4 early, but after that, we kept playing that try the barge over attack. I remember watching that game. I remember telling you, mate, we just keep trying to barge over, and you can't do that in the NRL. Keep trying to play through the middle, and then the Manly game. Well, what can we say? We played them back into form. They barely lost the game after that, 13-12. We're such a generous team, you know. Manly are struggling, but let's play them back into form. So. Real mixed bag the first 6 rounds.
Yeah, for me, the Titans win was a great way to start the season, and it was great. That was the first game that we'd actually been to together, and it was a bit of a party atmosphere afterwards from that one. I've been very fortunate at the front end of the season to be able to go to quite a few games because a lot of them were here in Sydney, and then I was punished the last 14 weeks because I've been in lockdown for the old COVID. But so being at a lot of these games, I was at that Raiders game where that win was an important one for us. We really had no we didn't really deserve to win that game. For me, the big thing out of that game was Sean O'Sullivan playing halfback in his first game for the club. Being live, I could see a lot of what was happening that guys probably couldn't see on TV, and he was really vocal. He was really talkative. He really led the side. He was the one that identified the Raiders' weaknesses when they were reduced to 14 men and had us running at tight forwards and encouraging the offload. So I put a lot of that win down to Sean O'Sullivan that day. He ran for 120 metres. As you boys have all said, the loss to the Knights and the loss to Manly are probably the 2 heartbreaking ones in that first 6 rounds. We should have really won those 2 games. The Dragons win was a great win. For me, the Roosters game, probably the most disappointing thing out of that Roosters game was the way that we just allowed young Sam Walker to kind of direct that game. All that game, we didn't put any pressure on him for, a young kid playing his 4th game in first grade. We should have really put a lot of pressure on him. We should have had our, Doc Masilla and guys like that running at him in the defensive line and identifying him, and we didn't do that. And so that was probably a really disappointing thing for me. It was something that we didn't do a lot of all season, which was identify other teams' weaknesses or flaws, which came back to bite us big time in a lot of games. Following on from those 6 games, and we had a mixed bag. We had 2 wins in that time. One against the Cowboys, and I think one against the Tigers. So we played the Storm in the first game of that Group 6, which was the Anzac Day game. We lost 42-20. We then went on and played the Cowboys, won 24-20 in that one. Lost to the Seagulls, 38-32 down at Brookie. Up to Magic Round, and were kind of smashed off the park in the first 20 minutes against Parramatta and lost that one 34-18. We got one back against the Tigers in the first round of the Mike Doreen Cup. Won that one 30-26. And then a heartbreaker against the Cowboys leading into the bye where we lost 29-28 when it looked like we had that game in control. Rob, how did you see that period of games that we went through?
It was an interesting period because the very first game, the Anzac Day game at the Storm, coincided with Reece Walsh being injected into the lineup. So for me, it was kind of that game against the Storm was a really weird one for me because we got smashed as you thought we would have. But at the same time, there was so much to look forward to. There's so much to be excited about after Reece's debut, setting up a couple of tries. And then that carried over into the first half of that Cowboys game. That was the best I think we looked all season in attack. Where we led 24-4, I think it was. But then after half time, we went back into that whole, they scored a quick try after half time and that followed by 2 or 3 more tries. And we were lucky to hold on in that game. And if it was any other team other than the Cowboys, then we probably would have dropped that one as well. The game against the Sea Eagles, another frustrating one, leading 20-12 at half time. And right after half time, we had that golden opportunity with Cody, who, instead of going through the hands, tried to throw a cutout pass, unmarked Ed Cossey, who spilled it. And then, we were at the Magic Round game, and that was just over before it started.
Yeah.
24-0 after about 15 minutes or so. And it's hard to come back from there. And then we had the Reece Walsh show on the first, pretty much the whole game if that Tigers win. But again, it was one that we should have iced, and we held on for dear life at the end there. One of those nervous finishes, and then the heartbreaker against the Cowboys. That one still hurts. We stormed right back into that game. We were leading 28-22 with 5 minutes to go, and somehow we got beaten. And you just can't do that.
Yeah.
Richie, plenty of results that should have gone the other way.
Yeah, Richie, how did you see those games pan out over that 6-week period, mate?
It's funny, Rob, speaking about that Storm game, I fully expected going into that game that we would get pantsed or at least soundly beaten, just given how results against the Storm have gone of recent history. But much like Rob, seeing Reece Walsh do what he did and come up with some beautiful plays against the benchmark team, it left you feeling, deflated we lost, but with a bit of hope that we've uncovered a bit of a gem here. And then, much like the other losses in the first 6, the one against Manly and the Eels, it's just deflating the manner of the losses. The one against the Sea Eagles, we probably should have won, or we were in a very good position to win that game, and unfortunately let them have their way with us. The Eels, we just never got into that game until it was already gone, pretty much. And then the Reece Walsh show against the Tigers, again, just reinforcing what a gem we uncovered there, and all the try involvements he had was fantastic. And the game that made me nearly destroy my TV, the one against the Cowboys. It's just another game where, we should have won, but somehow it's always the other team ending up with a field goal at the end and not us.
Yeah, absolutely. How did you see those games pan out, Apai?
Yeah, look, the Storm game, I think I was pretty excited for that game because of Reece Walsh, and I was just sort of wanting to see what he could bring. And obviously during the game, even though we lost and it was quite, bit heavy, I was actually pretty pleased with what I saw with him contributing to some try assists, and general play, he looked very confident, so I was pretty happy there. Heading into that the game against the Cowboys, look, I was pretty happy with the lead, but then as per usual, defense, I think was, I don't know what's wrong, but defense just doesn't seem to be the thing we manage well, and it showed there. Even though we won, we'll take it. But yeah, the Manly game against Manly, again we should have won. We didn't. Probably a bit controversial though regarding Reece Walsh and the positioning. Some people said he should have been coming off the bench. I think he was marked that he was playing at 5'8" there, and I think Trbojevic and Saab sort of ran circles around him 2 times, leading to tries. So that was probably a very big point there. Heading into the Magic round wasn't really magic at all, actually, for us anyway. For us anyway, look, it was just too good from the get-go. We couldn't really catch up. And then heading into that Tigers game, again, doing well, the Reece Walsh show, I think he carried us. But again, just leaking so many tries. Again, just an issue there. And then the last game against the Cowboys, absolutely devastated. I thought we worked well. I love that Reece Walsh try when he runs down the sideline and he gets it. But just like what Rob said, it still hurts now. Devastated. So, yeah, not pleased. No.
No. Brad, give us your thoughts, mate.
Yeah, I'll go at it at a different rate. There's one game every year that I already have my review ready for, and that's Anzac Day, because every Anzac Day we play the Storm and we get dicked. It happens every year. But I did come out of that, despite losing 42-20, I came out positive because of Reece. Reece Walsh actually managed to get Ken Mamalo over the try line again, which we haven't seen in a while because no one would give him the ball. And then Reece knew that if he passed that center and skipped him straight away, Ken would go over in the corner. So it was good to see that, especially getting your debut against Melbourne on an occasion like that. And then, beating the Cowboys, it was good to see. I might get a bit of flack from your flatmate there, but there's two teams you should always beat, the Cowboys and the Tigers.
I agree.
Thankfully, we did beat the Tigers on 2 occasions, but it was a bit too close for comfort in this one. And losing to the Cowboys in that second game was heartbreaking. That should not, especially going into the bye, they really needed that win. Defense on my weekly reviews, defense was always a bugbear. I've been calling for Justin Morgan's head all year, but there's just something not there. I know we'll go into it with injuries and stuff, I'm sure, but even when we had our team there, it still seemed like you would get a lead and then slowly let it get chipped away, which is nerve-wracking, and I don't like it.
Yeah, it's interesting too, isn't it? Because last year we built a lot of our games on our resilience in defence, particularly on our own line. And even when the season was we lost that game against Cronulla and we couldn't make the finals, we still played Parramatta and put in a good performance. We still played Canberra and put in a really good performance and destroyed Manly at the end. And then I think back to the Penrith game in last season as well, how good we were defensively. But this year it seemed like we went away from that. They didn't do enough work on defense, or perhaps it had something to do with the fact that combinations were constantly changing, and as you said there, Brad, injuries, which we will talk about later, kind of you lose that trust in the guy inside you defensively. But these 6 games for me were very frustrating. As you said, the Anzac Day game, you always kind of know that you're going to get pants by Melbourne in Melbourne. If anyone ever gets a chance to go to a Anzac Day game down in Melbourne, though, it's a sensational game to go and see live. I went a couple of years back. For me, both Walsh and Rocco Berry made their debuts in that game. Reece Walsh was outstanding. Let's not forget Roger had a compound fracture of his finger in the warm-up, which is why he shifted out to the wing. He could have not played. They taped him up and he played on. The Cowboys' home win, as Rob said, we led 24-4 and we were really run down. And the thing that really saved us was the fact that something that we had issues with at times during the year was Valentine Holmes' kicking boots didn't come down for the trip from North Queensland, and he only managed to kick 2 from 5. So that we were kind of saved in that respect. The Manly loss again, big, 20-12 leading. Really should have been able to win that game, but and I think it was might have been, was it 5 minutes to go or something like that? Manly finally broke away from us. Parramatta Magic Round, 24-0 after 18 minutes. There was a little magic at Magic Round because of all remember that was when they did that big crackdown on the head knocks and head high tackles and stuff. Our game was the only game that didn't have anyone suspended or sin bin, which was crazy because Jazz was playing. But I do recall Mitch Moses jumping and taking Rogers' head off down the sideline and nothing happened. So, that kind of, fuels that that argument about how the Warriors are always hard done by. And then, again, the Tigers win. And that, too, was a game that we nearly lost. The final shift of the game, the Tigers going to their left side, really should have passed the ball. Seafarth turned it back on the inside, and we held on for a win. So, yeah, very frustrating. And I thought the bye would be the period in time where, our boys would be able to rest up. Some of the boys went home to New Zealand so they could catch up with family, which was great. I thought that we'd freshen up and be able to make a charge for the finals. But as we all know, that didn't happen. No. And the following 6 games, which are dubbed the Horror Six, we lost 42-16 to Melbourne, 10-6 to the Knights, 19-18 to St. George, 20-12 against the Sharks, 30-16 against the Panthers, and then the horror of the season, the 60-22 defeat against the Rabbitohs. Apai, lead us off, mate. What are your thoughts on this horror 6-game period in our season?
Look, pure disappointment. Obviously, you tune into the games. You want to watch the boys do something, win. Obviously, that wasn't the case. I think for some of the games, especially that Knights game, that was really deflating because I thought we were the better team. But unfortunately, our defense, as per usual, let us down. Looking again to that Storm game, probably an easy answer there. But that Dragons game where Cody Walker got that drop goal, now that one there, I think that was probably the most devastated I've felt all season. I honestly think so. That was just, out of all the players, of all the teams, and that Sharks game, Sean Johnson was playing, so he did well to lead the Sharks around. And just the last 2 games, Penrith Panthers, again, that was the game where we had that horror injury, and that was RTS's last game too for us, unfortunately. And obviously the Rabbitohs game, I don't know what to say there. It was hard. It was just hard, really. But, yeah.
I'm looking forward to these comments, Brad. How did you sum up those games?
This 6 weeks broke me. You guys, we all do shows talking about the Warriors every week. So when I'm watching the game, I'm usually doing a live match report for a website in Australia at the same time. So I'm writing it and I'm already thinking about my written review I'm doing and then the show I'm going to do, and like trying to find something that you can grasp onto to have a little bit of optimism. And you just could, I lost it. I lost the will. Out of looking at the 3 or the 6 games, I already had 3 down as losses, which was Storm, Panthers, Rabbits. But I thought the Knights, Dragons, Sharks were all games they could walk away with the win. And the fact that they didn't, especially like Api just said about the Dragons game, losing to Corey Norman like that just does my head in. But it makes it hard to be a Warriors fan sometimes. I love the team, but they can hurt you so much. It looked really bad.
Yeah, it did. That Dragons game too, we were up 18-4 with less than 10 minutes to go and managed to do what we are very renowned for doing, and that is clutch defeat from the jaws of victory. That was very disappointing. Richie, how do you look back on those 6 games apart from misery and disappointment?
There was a lot of misery and disappointment. The Storm game, rinse and repeat from the last Storm game pretty much. I wasn't holding much hope. The 4 games in the middle, so the Knights game I remember that game where we looked decent and had a really strong wind at our back in the first half, but didn't look like we were using it to our advantage. And then when it turned at halftime, the Knights halves just used it to full advantage and were just sending towering bombs on us, and it really, that was the undoing of us. And Brodie Jones went over for the winner at the end, and another heartbreaking result. That Dragons game, like you said, Mark, we let in 3 tries in the last 10 minutes. So I think Jared Beale scored, Jack Bird and Cody Ramsey scored in the 80th minute. You don't get a lot more heartbreaking than that, except when you throw in the fact that Corey Norman kicked the field goal, and that's just the icing on the cake. The Panthers game, I thought, we showed a lot of courage that game. We had a lot of injuries, but we were actually traveling pretty well up until the injuries hit us in that game. The Rabbitohs game, I don't even know where to start on that one. You'd hope to never see your team concede 50, let alone 60, but it almost looked like we waved the white flag a little bit.
Yeah. Robbie?
Oh, mate, that Storm game. To start that off for me, it's probably best remembered for being Ken Mamalo's last game from the club, though. He did get that hat trick right at the end, and you can remember it was quite emotional at the end, being his last game.
I remember we had a bit of conversation about that at the time too, because he'd scored a hat trick in that first game against Melbourne. He scored a hat trick against Melbourne in the second game, and then the very first game for the Tigers a week after, he was playing Melbourne again. And he could have been the first player to score a hat trick against Melbourne 3 times in a year, but as it turned out, he went to a team that was worse than us.
No, he went to the Tigers, so there goes that. But it's interesting because we scored 36 points against the Storm this year, and that's probably the most that any team was able to score against them. So that was fairly something, I suppose. I'm clutching at straws here, but it's something. That night's game was just a tough watch. Terrible conditions, as you said, windy, and we really should have won that. And it was another one where you're just waiting for them to come and win it at the end, which they did. Look, that Dragons game, I know you guys have spoken about it, but this is going to go down for me as one of those games, along with that Penrith game from 2017. That game where we just led 28-6 and just blew it. This, for me, is going to rank alongside that as games that you just dumbfounded that we lost that. We're up 18-6 or whatever it was. Was that when Chad Townsend went for a field goal when we were 18-10 up or something? And at that point, you're like, hang on, I don't think you even know what's going on out there. And it just, as we always say, it just slowly unfolds before your eyes, and there's nothing you can do about it. It just slips out of your grasp. And that was just a punishing watch. Then we had that Sharks game, and again, I just remember our attack being brutal. Like, it was just brutally bad. We just couldn't put anything together. And Sean Johnson just schooled us with his kicking game, and that was really the difference in that. The next 2 games I actually went to. So this is when the comp relocated up to Queensland, and I went along to the Panthers game. And although we lost, you had to be really proud of that effort. Players dropping like flies. I don't think we had anyone on the bench by the end of the game, did we? So it was a really brave effort to keep that score somewhat respectable, and we got a couple of good tries that game. So I came away from that feeling quite confident that the next weekend when I travelled to the Sunshine Coast that we were going to put on a pretty good show against the Rabbitohs. But that was probably one of the worst games I've ever been to. Having to sit there and watch the Rabbitohs literally score with every touch of the ball was just demoralising. There's not much more I can say about that. So, yeah.
You sat next to Reece Walsh's family at that game too, didn't you? At the South game.
Yeah, I think they were Reece Walsh's family friends or something like that. Yeah, they were telling me about how they went down to Melbourne to watch him play in his debut, and that is really weird. They were cheering for Reece but cheering for Souths. They were all wearing like South jerseys and stuff, but they were going, "Go Reece," and I'm like, okay.
Kind of like Dane Laurie driving around the Gold Coast at the moment. Mate, for me, those 6 games were just demoralising. I know there have been periods in the club's history where we've lost games on the trot. I can remember, I think it was 2016, Rob will be able to correct me, where Sean Johnson got injured. We were in the top 4 and we went on a 9-game losing streak and didn't make the semis.
2015.
But this for me, there was games in here that we should have won. And as you guys have pointed out, that Knights game for me just showed a lack of cohesion and a lack of game management from our halves. And that also led into the Dragons game, where we needed halves at 18-4 with 10 to go. We just needed halves that were going to control the pace of the game, put kicks into corners, make the Dragons work from inside their own, 10-metre zone to out. But, we go for stupid plays like a field goal, which gives a 7-tackle step, which they score off, and from that, everything goes to shit. the Melbourne game, as you said, Rob, going back to the first of those 6 games, being Big Ken's farewell. Great to see him leave the club on a personal high with a hat trick. They had the Warriors put on the big Kiwi Coast party that day, so it was a massive thing there at Central Coast Stadium. Little did we know it was also going to be the last game that they played there. We didn't know that at the time. Got to see Ken after the game, and he was pretty emotional about leaving the club. Got to perform a crowd harker, which was a highlight for me of the year. The Panthers game was probably the game that showed what we are capable of. And I know you guys have spoken about, but we had no bench after 30 minutes. So we played 50 minutes of that game with no replacements. Things were so dire that I think Wade Egan had done his shoulder, and then he came out on the sideline all strapped up. They were trying to warm him up to see if he could go out there again, and he damaged it even more, doing a couple of practice tackles. And for our big men that day, Fanua Blake and Matt Lodge were outstanding, both, over 200 metres, over 30 carries each, both over 30 tackles, played, pretty much 80-minute games. And I kind of thought, even though it was a 30-16 scoreline, that the Panthers never got away from it. And we fought really, really hard. And I thought that might be the turning point for us. And then, as you said, Rob, we come out, we play South the next week, and it starts off really well. DWZ gets that try. A guy that had sacrificed the birth of his child to stay with the team and stay in camp. Right. And I thought, here we go. The wheels just fell off. Probably the most positive thing that happened for me during that time was the fact that the Dragons game was going to be a game at Central Coast, and we went into lockdown. They moved the comp to Queensland, and thankfully I didn't have to go and watch that one live. I think that would have absolutely destroyed me. We then go into a rarity, something that hasn't occurred since 2018, and that's a 3-game winning streak. We played the Tigers, beat them 18-16. Played the Bulldogs, I think it was, Sharks, beat them 18-16, and then the Bulldogs 24-10. And this was a weird period too, because all 3 of those games we were actually down by 10-0 or more, either halftime or just prior to halftime. So up until that point, we hadn't won a game all season coming from behind, and that kind of proved a difference for us. I think, before I throw to you guys, I think for me the biggest thing that came out of this was, it's no surprise that that period of time that we went through where we were a little bit patchy and then go into a 7-game losing streak was a period of time where a guy like Petahiku wasn't playing. And Pet came back for that game against the Tigers. There was an interview that he gave after the game, because there was a point in that game where we got a penalty and Reece Walsh went to go for a really quick tap, and Hiku knocked the ball out of his hands and just said to him, mate, we're up. Like, we don't have to rush the play here. Let's just settle it down. And I think his level head, he's such a really laid-back kind of guy, and his level head, his professionalism is something we missed during this season, and his ability to set up his outside men. Our wingers got very little ball all season. Richie, how did you see these 3 games, mate? The what I've called the hope restored part of our season.
Hope restored's a good way to put it, because I think by this stage we all kind of had our calculators out trying to work out the ramifications of each win. Doesn't mean the wins were any less stressful games. That Tigers Warriors game was extremely stressful. And it almost looked like in that game it was the team who, it looked like neither team wanted to win almost. And what kind of summed it up for me was towards the end, where Tigers were attacking, hoping for a win, and they play the ball and there's no dummy half there, and Reece Walsh jumps in and steals the ball. So it's just looked like one of those games where neither team wanted to win, but obviously if you're on our side of the fence, you take that every day of the week. The Warriors-Sharks game, I think the Sharks were a bit beaten up by injury this time around, so we get this one back on them. I think this time around, no Sean Johnson, so he couldn't pepper us with a bunch of repeat sets like he did in the last game we had with them. The Bulldogs game, we were all hoping for a nice big win to help with our points differential, and it, we beat them rather handsomely in the end, or handsomely enough. But I know we probably could have put 2 or 3 more on them, or we had a couple of tries. I think might have been Ed Cossey dropped the ball over the line, so we didn't run away with it, but we did enough to win it. And like you titled it, Mark, hope was a little restored.
Yeah, it was a period though too where, like all those 3 games, because of the way we were going, we could have easily have lost them, and we kind of nearly did. The Cronulla game for me will always be remembered as that game where Will Chambers just chirped non-stop. Kane Evans went to the sin bin. He earned his nickname that we gave him as Origami Evans, because the only thing he can fold is paper. He's less than impressive punches. Brad, how did you look at these 3 games? What did you take out of them?
Yeah, I was going to say, we were talking about it the other day. If there's any player in the NRL I'm going to challenge to a boxing fight, it's definitely Evans. So if he's watching, whatever the money is, I'll do it. But yeah, these 3 games, they were games they had to win, and they did. That Tigers game, I'm sure you guys talk a lot during the game. Richie and I are generally angrily texting each other during games. And that one was getting quite frustrating. We'll basically, I think we did say at one point, it's just whichever team's going to be the stuff up the biggest is going to lose this game. And thankfully, that was the Tigers with that play the ball with no dummy half.
That's right, yeah.
They were really getting a roll on. And if that hadn't happened, I think they could have actually gone in and got that win. But thankfully, they were more of a box of cats than we were. So, it was good though. And it was, you were looking at those games coming up and going, they could actually build off these 3 games and have a run. But I was hoping for a bigger game against the Bulldogs. And we'll probably talk about that in your disappointment segment as well. I would have preferred a different location. But I think if we had that different location, I think there might have been a bigger score too. But I think I saw in the comments earlier, this season was a bit of coulda, woulda, shoulda. So but it was good to see a 3-game winning streak in what's been a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. Apai, how did you look at those games? What did you take out of those 3 wins?
Yeah, look, that Tigers game, the first game, the one that stood, the reason why it sort of stands out to me is, I think in terms of our squad, we were pretty depleted. We had some debuts as well. I think I probably coined it myself personally as like probably arguably the weakest Warriors squad, that we've had on the field for me personally. And so for us to come away with that win, considering Tigers were under so much pressure, I thought was a gutsy win. And yeah, that's right. That Reece Walsh moment when he grabs the ball, I think was probably the key moment there. And Pitahuku's experience too helped as well, having him back. So it was a timely win. Heading into that, the Sharks game, that game I always remember Evans for, just those moments there with Will Chambers, I guess. It was interesting, but in saying that, we got the win, so happy about that. And then the last game against the Bulldogs, I think I'm actually pretty similar to Brad in that sense that, sure, we won, but I think we could have done better. I think even Richie sort of touched on it as well. We could have done better. I think that to a degree, though, sort of summed up our season, especially with versing a team that was, last on the table. It was a good win, but it could have been a lot better. And I just don't think we executed as well as we should have, dropped the ball in key moments. But in saying that, 3 wins in a row, I definitely did feel a little hope, definitely.
Absolutely. How about you, Robbie? What did you make of this little period of success?
So the return leg of the Mike Doreen Cup against the Tigers at Suncorp there. I mean, we did a live watch for it that night, and it was really like who was the lesser of the evils in that game. It was like it is the Mike Doreen Cup, 2-0 this year. It was never in doubt in this game, wasn't it? Yeah, we were super confident we were going to win this one. Yeah, like you said, up, I decimated squad, and we were down 10-0 at half time. And crucially, we got a try right after halftime to Egan, who had a really big game. That was his first game in the second row, I think it was. He had a big game that night. He scored that try. Remember they tried that short dropout, and he just steamed onto it and scored that try. And look, we did enough to hold on, and I think if we're playing anyone other than the Tigers, sorry, Carl, we don't get that win. But at that point in time, who cared? Because we hadn't won in so long. We were just like celebrating anything. And then the week later, backing it up against the Sharks, who are opposition we traditionally struggle against. And the Sharks, we got out to a 6-0 lead. The Sharks got back to 16-6 at halftime. We think, here we go, a bit more of that. But we showed some more resilience, and it was good to see UNA can run over the top of Will Chambers to score a try in that game. Yeah. Bit of poetic justice, and then that was when Joshy Curran took out the hand sanitizer as well at the end for the hit of the season. And like you blokes have said, the 24-10 win over the Bulldogs, it was a win. I mean, it was just a bit kind of mediocre. We looked like we would get we jumped out of the blocks really quick. Josh Curran had a barnstormer that day. And I think we could have put on a few more tries before half time. And then, obviously, definitely in the second half, we murdered a few opportunities. But at the time, you're just happy to get the win, and it was 3 in a row. And as you said, we haven't done that since 2018. So, full of optimism after this block of games. And we were going into somewhat decent final 3 games.
Yeah.
Easy games.
Yeah.
Easy games.
Yeah, of course.
For me, that Tigers win kind of reminds me of the Dragons win last year. Remember when we hadn't won a game in the first 2 games? The Com got shut down. The only try we'd scored was a penalty try, so we hadn't legitimately crossed the try line. So we won that Dragons game, and everyone was, how good are we? And, we had that 98% completion rate. But then looking back on that game towards the end of the season, you kind of think, well, it wasn't that good because with all that possession, we really should have put points on that Dragons team. That's how I felt with these 3 games. It was great to get the win, and you'll always take a 2-point win. But the Tigers game was kind of that relief that finally we get a win. We're off that losing streak. Then we play the Sharks, and we show, as you said, Rob, we show a little bit of resilience because we went through that game. We had 3 sin bins in that game. Evans got sin bin twice. And Chanel got sin binned as well. So we effectively played nearly 30 minutes. I know Chanel's was late in the game. So 25 minutes of that game, we only played with 12 guys on the field. So kudos to the boys because they ripped in and got the win, fought hard for the win. And then like all you guys said, the 24-10 win against the Bulldogs, I think we all thought that it was going to be a points fest for the Warriors. And the fact that it wasn't kind of spelt like it had alarm bells ringing for me, considering who we were going to be playing our last 3 games against. And I know Brad will talk about it a little bit later on, but that was a game that essentially was supposed to be played at New Zealand in front of the New Zealand crowd. And I know for a fact that all the players were that penciled that one, or they'd circled that on their calendar. They were really looking forward to the boys that had played at Mount Smart getting back to Mount Smart. Those that had never played there, looking forward to going there and actually playing in front of their home fans. And it was I think they were kind of a little bit crushed that they couldn't get back there for that game. It's another one of those what could have been. We'll never know if, we get home and we have a points fest, or we get home and, the enormity and the emotion of the occasion, we end up like the Tigers did when they tried to farewell Tommy not once but twice this year and got hammered by Cowboys and Titans, I think, in those games. So, which led us into the last 3 weeks of the comp where, as Richie said earlier, we all had our calculators out and we were working out who needed to lose and who needed to win, and we knew we had to win all those games. And we came up against 3 teams. The Broncos weren't vying for a semi-final position. They weren't in the race with us, but it was a completely different Broncos side to the Broncos side that started the season. That found a little bit of form. we came up against them. Then we had a Raiders team that were, trying to get into the finals as well, and probably looked like the team that we're going to get there. And then the Titans, who we, after beating them in round one, where we, contained Tino, we contained the enigma that is David Fafita. We kind of thought this is going to be, it'll be great. We'll have to beat the Titans to make the 8, and it's going to be awesome. And it didn't turn out that way. And for me, especially, the Broncos game and the Raiders game probably sum up our season so well, where the Broncos game, it was kind of seesawing game. It was back and forth. No team really got the ascendancy, and it was kind of they score, we score, they score, we score, they score, we score. And if it was just going to be whoever scored last wins the game because the hooter goes and the other team doesn't get to score again. And that's pretty much how it went. We really couldn't control the ball that game. Reece Walsh had an off game with a boot. He only kicked 1 from 5, which was a major difference. And he copped a lot of flack for that on social media. But goal kickers have off days. And, every now and then, they miss some goals. That performance for me and the Canberra Raiders performance where, we're in that game up until the last couple of minutes was, again, 2 examples of inexperienced halves not knowing how to close out a game or win us a game or bring us home. And then, of course, there was the 44-0 drubbing from the Titans, a performance that was so bad, both in actual performance on the field and the character and discipline on the field as well, that both CEO Cameron George and Coach Nathan Brown had to come out and publicly apologise to the fans and the members on the way that the team finished off the season. And, we've got some suspensions out of those games as well for Lodge, Reece Walsh, and Kane Evans, who the way the news reports are going, we won't have to worry about. He won't be playing with us next year. He's going to pick up a lucrative boxing career or something as a heavy bag in a gym or something. Apai, how do you look back on the final 3 games of the season, closing out that 2021 season for us?
Yeah, well, going into that Broncos game, I was actually a bit nervous because I just had this feeling that the Broncos could do something, but at the same time, I was pretty confident, especially, the 3 prior wins will do something. Obviously, it wasn't the case. Reece Walsh's kicking, I think, was the main difference there. But, I guess you summed it up. Just lack of defense, you score, I score type thing. It just wasn't good enough at the end. That Raiders game, that was probably a devastating one because we led so comfortably. And then you sort of just see the Raiders just come back in the second half and mount try after try after try. And you're just sitting there like, what on earth is going on? And, it's just, wasn't a good watch. And just the last game, I don't know. I think I was probably at my most heated here with this game here, especially afterwards. Few players there I definitely wasn't a fan of regarding their reaction. Just the loss overall, just... Yeah, I don't know if I'd say it summed up our season, that loss there, but it just showed that, again, it just wasn't good enough. And, we deserved to finish where we were, really.
Yeah. Richie, what do you think, mate? What do you take away from those last 3 rounding out the season?
Unfortunately, not a lot, We kind of end up sitting on the table where we have the past couple of years. The Broncos game... again, another game we should have won. I think we outscored them in tries, 5 tries to 4, but it's just the Reece Walsh, didn't have his best day off the tee, as you guys pointed out. I think Hiku had a storm of that game and was proving to be, that we've probably missed him for a good chunk of that season, missed his experience. I remember that game for Anthony Milford probably having his best game in 3 or 4 years. He chose to do it in this game here against us. And, it just wasn't to be. The Raiders game, I think that was the game I was actually doing the live watch with you guys. And I think it was the first half was one of the best first halves we'd put in. And then followed by just a terrible effort in the second half. I think we, again, had some injuries, and I think that game Chad Townsend went off injured, and then we just looked like we lost all direction. And just didn't know how to finish that game off. And that Titans game, it's just one you wish you could unwatch, really. Jaden Campbell showing what a prodigious young talent he is. He had a storming game, but I think the way we lost it and the biff at the end, how we sort of lost our cool and gave into the little bits of maybe a little bit of sledging. But I think 3 or 4 of our players seriously overreacted, and I think that was probably what was the most disappointing thing about that loss, how we just sort of meekly gave up and then appeared to throw our toys out of the cot. So, that was a bit of a disappointing way to go out.
Yeah, that's what Cameron George said last week when we had him on too. We kind of asked him about that, and he said it was kind of just like the culmination of so much what's the word I'm looking for? Just came to a boiling point, and it's no excuse for it, but kind of what happened. Brad, I'm interested to hear your take on these final 3 games.
I knew you would.
I love your honesty, mate. That's all it is.
I went into these final 3 games already ticking them all off as wins. Broncos, the shithouse, they're rubbish. Raiders had fallen off a cliff, and the Titans we had already beaten. And then, was humbly proven wrong on all 3 counts. Broncos, Milford he had been on a holiday for the last, 2-3 years and decided this was going to be the game, unfortunately. Reece Walsh was a bit topsy-turvy with his goal kicking, but that does happen from time to time. So it had to happen at some point. Unfortunately, it was this game. Raiders, one of the writers on the website I write for is a massive Canberra fan, and I was giving it to him at halftime. And then, they scored 28 points on us in the second half and made me eat humble pie. And then the Titans game was just depressing. In terms of everyone, throwing tantrums and throwing fists, I loved it. It was the wrong time. Completely agree. But, if you're going to throw your toys out of the cot, you may as well throw hands as well. So, it is what it is. Yeah, it's just Kane doesn't know how to do it properly.
Tissue paper. Yes.
Yeah, it was unfortunate, but I think you kind of touched on it with the all their hopes of coming to Mount Smart in that Bulldogs game and like that kind of crushing them. I think you saw that flow on in these final 3 games. In that final game against the Titans, when they knew that it was over and they weren't going to come back, I think they just gave up. As sad as it is, and that's why it went to shit. Really, I think they were just over it, and I think if the ref had allowed them to just say it's over and ended at 60 minutes, they probably would have.
They probably already at that stage too. They already knew that they weren't going to be able to get home for at least another month and a half after that, if at all. So it's obviously got to take a toll on their mental health and so forth. And we're not going to throw that around haphazardly and say, oh, this is the reason. But, you've got a squad of 30 guys, you've got 17 guys that are playing, and everyone handles situations completely differently. And for some of those guys, it's been a long time away from family and friends and loved ones. The married guys or the guys with partners have their partners and their kids here. But the single guys are on their own, and that can be hard sometimes. When you're living in that little NRL bubble, and you've really got no, close friend or family member to turn to and to lean on. So, Robbie, how did you see these, mate? And before you answer, I'll say that I can remember the discussions before the Broncos game, and Rob brought out his crystal ball again. He goes, I can see what's going to happen. Anthony Milford's going to have a blinder here. It'll be the only game that he plays good for 3 years. And over to you, Rob. What happened?
Well, funny you say, because I happened to be at this game. And, I watched it all unfold before my very eyes. And, sure enough, we made the MILF look like $1 million player again. And I think the Broncos are already starting to get out the checkbooks again and say, hang on, maybe we can re-sign this guy. He had a great game against us. If he was going to do it against anyone, it was going to be against us. As you guys have all touched on, Reece Welsh had off day with the boot. I sort of wonder if maybe he was a little bit overawed playing against his old team, and maybe he just wanted to win so badly that maybe that led to a couple of the things that didn't go right for him on the day. As you said, Petahiku, though, he had a blinder. And that try assist that he put for DWZ was, vintage Hiku.
Special.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And that brought us along to Mackay and the Raiders game, and a few of us did a live watch for that, and we all had our hearts broken. It was classic. We're all sitting here going, this is one of those games where that thing is going to happen, and that thing being that we just absolutely murder a decent lead at halftime. And I think the crucial part was we led 16-0, and about maybe 2 minutes before halftime, I think CNK got a try. And we were all saying at the time, that's so crucial because that just turned the momentum at a crucial time before halftime. And this was another one where I think the scores were still level with about 5 minutes to play. And they just scored 3 tries in like the last 10 minutes again, I think it was. And
15 minutes. Yeah. We're leading 16-6, 15 to go. And then Jordan Rapana out of his jack in the box that he'd been hiding in and just terrorised us for 15 minutes.
Yeah, of course he did. Yeah. I was a little bit annoyed, shall we say, after that one. But anyway, it brought us along to the final round. It was Father's Day, so I decided to take the family to the footy on the Gold Coast. And, happy Father's Day. I sat there in the rain. The rain started coming down. And, it was the biggest cheer was when our players got fisticuffs and the sin binnings, because there wasn't much else to cheer about. And I was just hoping that we might be able to go out with a little bit of a bang and just, put on a bit of a performance for the supporters. But, it wasn't to be. And, probably one of our worst, if not our worst performance of the season.
Mate, it's just come to my attention whilst we've been going through these games that you were at the Penrith game, you were at the South game, you were at the Broncos game, and then you were at that Titans game to finish off the season. I'm not saying anything. I'm just
stop going to games.
It's just an interesting thing that I've noticed. You're also at Magic Round, but I was there for that too, so it can't be. Hey,
but let's not forget we started off the year 2-0.
We did with the Titans and the Dragons game. Yeah, we did. We must. Boys, I'll throw it over to you. I'll start with you, Brad. Key wins. What do you think were the key wins for the Warriors, or the key win that really stands out for you for the Warriors this year? The one that's probably the most memorable, I guess.
I think it was that round 20 against the Tigers. It was, we kind of touched it, but like any win to break that losing streak needed to happen. But it was probably the comical way that the Tigers cocked it up is what made it memorable to me, because the Tigers are on the way, and I was thinking like this is going to be great for the reality show. It was, but for a completely different reason. It was my favorite episode of watching that capitulation and seeing Maguire losing his mind. But that was probably it, because eventually the losing streak had to end at some point. And that was, like you said, it was the start of restoring hope that only lasted 3 weeks, but that was the starting point for me. So that's probably my key win.
How about you, Apai? Your key win for the season, or key wins?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go off what Brad was saying as well. The Tigers as well, the inexperienced squad was the majority, a few debuts. And just like Brad said, it was comical. I thought it was funny, especially, the kick where Egan grabs the ball and sort of scores from there. It was funny. It was good humor. And just saying that, you can only sort of bear so many losses. So watching that and getting that win was just a huge sigh of relief for me. Like, I just needed it personally for my own mental health. So it was good.
Richie?
I don't know about any of them being key wins because we didn't end up in the 8, but I'll give you my most enjoyable win. Probably the Raiders game where we won 34-31. Just from a pure entertainment point of view, and the fact that I think the Raiders were leading 25-6 at halftime. They were really doing a number on us. And then, kind of what happened to us in a couple of our games this year, they got a bit decimated through injury and ended up playing, I think, a good at least 60 minutes without a bench. And then try by try, we clawed it back. I think we put on 5 tries in the second half. I think Nicarima, Seranin, Brad's boyfriend, Murdoch Marcelo got one.
Yeah.
RTS and Pompey. And then we'll all remember it for the epic play at the end by RTS slapping the ball out of Rapana's hands to save the match for us, where it looked like they were certain to dive over in the corner and steal it.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of games that Canberra won in that fashion, unfortunately. How about you, Robbo? What did you make, or what was your key win moment of the season?
I'm going to go round 1. Down there at Central Coast. Yeah, I thought that was a really strong performance. We came out of the blocks. We just looked solid defensively. We came off the back of that trial against the Titans where we were really good defensively, and we kept them quiet all day and scored a few nice tries. It was a really strong way to start our year, and we were feeling extremely optimistic after that. And it's probably the best we looked all season, in my opinion.
Yeah, Tino didn't like me after that game, did he?
No, he didn't. What'd you say to him?
I said, "Do you wish you had a sign with us now, brother?" And he goes, "It's a long season,
bro."
He got the last laugh. They made the finals.
He did.
There you go.
You guys have touched on. I listed 4 games, and you guys have actually touched on 3 of those 4. The other one for me was the round 6 win against the Dragons. We come off losses to. We had the Knights in round 2. That we got that scratchy win in round 3 against the Raiders. The Roosters did a job on us, and then we failed to get that result against Manly, and it kind of looked like that slide was happening once again. And for them to bounce back and get a win against the Dragons side that have won 4 in a row, I thought that was a really key winning moment for our season. And I thought from there we could build and go on. Unfortunately, that was the game that Petahiku got injured in, and we didn't see him until round 20. So
RCS's 100th game for the Warriors as well. RCS's 100th game.
And it was also the first game that Joshy Curran played this year for the Warriors, and he turned out he had a great season for us. What about your key losses, Rick? Any? I mean, let me go. Hang on. Let me go through them for you. Okay, so the 1 point loss. We had round 5 against Manly. We led 12-6 at the 46-minute mark, then 12-all at 62 minutes. DCE field goal with 1 minute remaining. Round 12, we had these are the 1 point losses, boys. We played the Cowboys. We led 28-22 with 5 minutes to go. Hammerson, Tabuai, Fido converted try, penalty goal, converted try, and then Holmes with a field goal. Round 16, we led the Dragons 18-6 at the 70th minute. Dragons scored 3 tries to tie up the game, and Corey Norman pots a field goal in the 8th minute of extra time, which just shows how unable we were to close out the close games with experienced halves. And then the other games, we led the Knights in round 2, 16-14. 4 minutes to go, score and get the win. We had Manly, we've spoken about 20-12 at half time. They beat us. The Broncos was that back and forth game. And then obviously the Raiders, where we led 16-6 and got beaten. I mean, obviously the worst was that Rabbitoh loss. Aside from loss, which loss was the key loss for you, the one that kind of changed the momentum of our season moving forward?
Unfortunately, there was a fair bit more to choose from in that list, wasn't there, than the key wins. The worst one in my eyes was the Dragons one, 1918, just sheerly for the fact that we had it in the bag. That's, 99 times out of 100, you ice that game and win that. 18-6, leading 18-6, 10 minutes to go. We should have all we needed was a bit of guidance from our halves to ice that game, and then somehow they score 3 tries in the last 10 minutes, and Corey Norman, of all people, kicks the field goal. So just purely for the fact that we should have iced that game 99 times out of 100, you would, and somehow we, as Brad would say, we shit the bed in that one. That was the most heartbreaking one for me, and kind of summed up a lot of our season. We had a few heartbreakers like that.
Yeah, we did. What about you, Brad? Which is the one that probably stands out the most?
I think it's actually round 9 against Manly. Losing 38-32. It's the game we scored the most points in, but we still lost. And we had a good lead in that one too. And it was just Tommy Turbo, who was a player I grew to love as the season went on, but not in this game. He kind of ran roughshod over us in the early stages and really turned it. And it was still at that point we had that big loss to the Storm, but we bounced back with them against the Cowboys. This was the game they needed to get 2 on the trot, going into some games that they really could have won, and they just didn't. So it was kind of where my heart started to break. So yeah, that's mine.
Apai?
Look, anytime we lose to the Storm, I think. I think for me personally, it was definitely the Cowboys' loss heading into the bye. In all seriousness, just a devastating way to lose, and I just thought some players really played well as well. I think collectively, like obviously defense was out the window, but I mean offensively we're good, and just to lose a game that we should have won, and just seeing the Cowboy players sort of all sort of enjoy it. And that to me was the key loss for me.
Yeah. How about you, Rob?
Yeah, I got to agree with that one. Purely in terms of when it happened in the season, right before the bye, and that would have been such a crucial 2 points for us. And we were given a golden opportunity, despite the fact we were up 28-22, and then it got back to 28-all. We were given that golden opportunity right in front of the posts, where the Cowboys knocked on, and we kind of panicked through that set, and that's where it really became evident that we were lacking some real level heads and game managers in the side.
Yeah.
And it got to the last tackle, and we missed the field goal. Or I think a CHT missed it from point blank range, like right in front, which then gave away the 7-tackle set, which allowed Holmes to go up there and slot it. So, yeah, in terms of when that happened, in the context of our season, that was devastating.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to go the round after when we played Melbourne after the bye. I just thought, we had a couple of losses in that first part of the season before the bye, and I just thought the week off would be able to refresh. It was billed as that big Kiwi Coast party. They kept the Warriors here kept pushing that. The players before the game, they looked so up for that game, and then there was just deflation from the moment they stepped on the field. The Storm just controlled it and were never in it. And a good history against the Storm in various games throughout our Warriors history. But the 2 games we played this year were very disappointing, and that one probably more so than the Anzac Day game. So for me, that was probably the one, because that's when we started going on that downward spiral where we lost quite a few games in a row. We had some injuries this week, and we lost in the first game of the season, and he didn't come back until round 10 or 11. AFB, round 4, we lost him. He didn't come back till round 14. Hicko, round 6 to round 20. We had Chanel was in and out with injury. What do you think was how did the injuries that we had this year, Brad, like in terms of how it really affected our cohesion and able to form our combinations on the field?
Yeah, I think that was the biggest issue. The fact that we had no players to play in all 24 games. Jazz was the best at 22 and then Cody 21. But yeah, guys like linchpins like Peter Hiku, I think he ended up on 10 games in the season.
Yeah.
and he was really there. He was kind of that linchpin in the backs. Like you talked about, he was able to keep those young guys calm, especially when Roger was gone as well. And you just every week it was a new team. You can't build combinations, and if you don't build your combinations, you're kind of starting fresh every week, and we are not a team that can do that. So injuries aren't something you can really help. It was just a horrible run. Not the only team to have that happen to, but I try to look at it the optimist side, that there's young guys that got a lot more experience than they actually would have normally. So hopefully that helps for the future. But Hiku was probably my biggest loss, I think. Hiku and Tohu.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot about Tohu. Yeah, Tohu and also Fuss as well. He only played a handful of games at the beginning of the season. Apai, who for you stood out as probably the most crucial injury that we had this year during the season?
Yeah, you sort of named a few. I think one as well is probably Paul Turner as well. We didn't really get a chance to really see him develop, and obviously he's off to the Tigers now. So again, just an unfortunate ending there. I think just to go off what Brad was saying regarding injuries as a whole, every week was like basically, as I've sort of termed it myself, like an experiment. Every single week was a different experiment. You had teams like Storm, Manly, with their halves sort of being able to play week in, week out, whereas we had different halves almost every week. We had Chanel Harris-Tavita 1 minute with Cody, then we had Curran in at one stage. I think we even had Toru Harris, I think. It was just and then Walsh at one stage. So again, just these injuries just haven't been really good for us. And another one too, I think, is Fusitoa as well. So I think, for me personally, Paul Turner and Fusitoa were big ones for me.
How about you, Rich? Who did you see as the one that affected us the most?
I'll give you one, and then I'll give you one for free. So, Fanua Blake, for me, he was billed as our big signing in the forward pack, and early signs where he was looking fantastic, giving us a different sort of dimension of go forward that we'd been missing the couple years prior. And then he goes down for a fair chunk of the season, and our forward pack looked like it lost a lot of go forward and starch in that period after he was injured. The other one for me, Tohu Harris, in the back end of the season. I just wonder, had he stayed fit, if we'd iced a couple of those close games in the back end of the season, he might have played a big role in us finishing off a couple of those close games with his experience and his defensive prowess.
Yeah. Your thoughts on the injuries throughout the year, Rob?
Yeah, mate, we struggled to get cohesion throughout the whole squad. And I'm going to throw CHT up there. He got injured in the round one game as well. And I came into the season thinking this was going to be a big year for him, because I think it could have been a year where it could have been make or break year. And he just wasn't on the park enough. And he sort of came back for a little bit and then got injured. So he wasn't able to stay on the field. We couldn't get any continuity in our halves, like you guys were saying. And we had Sullivan in there one week, and then we had CHT, and then Cody moved in and out of the halves. And then we got Chad Townsend in. And I don't mind Chad Townsend. He was brought to the club for a reason, to offer experience, leadership, and game management. And, of course, his first game for the club, and he gets injured and misses, he probably only played about half of the games that he could have played as well. So that was key for me as well. We really lost out there too.
For me, it was definitely Fanua Blake. He getting injured in that Roosters game, round 4. He's missing for the next 10 rounds, where we did have, a couple of those games like against the Cowboys that we should have really won, and we lost. At that point in time, we didn't have Lodge in our roster. So the backups that we had, and nothing against, Bunty and Jermaine Tanoa-Brown and that, but they just don't get the go forward that Adam Fanua Blake gets. They don't get the post-contact meters that Adam Fanua Blake gets. And I think, we've always said, that a team can't move forward. The halves can't create plays unless the forwards are winning that forward battle. And I just don't think we won enough of those forward battles with him being out injured. And I think, we saw what he was capable of when he came back from injury. And he came back early and he was still played the back half of the season, still under a bit of an injury cloud. But I think that's probably the injury that sticks out for me most. Biggest improvers of the season, boys. I'm gonna start this one off. For me, Josh Curran ticked all the boxes when he made his played his first game against the Dragons, and I think he only missed a couple of games this year. 2 were for that. He was in a COVID lockdown because some idiot on a plane had close contact. But he was by far and away a shining light for us, especially in some of those losses. His edge play was sensational. Defensively, he was very good, and he just brought a lot of energy and enthusiasm to the team. Apai, who did you see as probably one of the biggest improvers during the season?
Yeah, look, for myself, I personally can't go past Josh Curran. Even I was very happy of the way he sort of developed, and someone who struggled to make the team sort of rise to this year. It was actually good to see it really just stand up and show why he should be in the team. And I think sort of a quote that Nathan Brown sort of said was, every week when he's not in, it's sort of like something, like you sort of expect him to be. And I'm not sure what he sort of said, just trying to paraphrase there, but basically somebody that you expect, and you definitely notice when he's not on the team. So that's full credit for him. So for me personally, Josh Curran definitely. Yep.
How about you, Rich?
Look, I agree with you two completely about Josh Curran. He just seemed to find another gear this year, and always seemed to find himself in the right spot, running beautiful lines, and ended up with a couple of lovely tries with a nice little combo he formed with Reece Walsh. So I personally really enjoyed his improvement, but also Montoya. I know it was his first year with us, but not knowing what to expect, him coming from where he came from, a team that was really struggling, and then coming to us, and he sort of made every post a winner, and just was such a solid signing for us. And every performance he went out there, he did the jersey proud and gave 100%.
Absolutely. How about you, Brad?
Yeah, I had Curran and Montoya as my options, but since they've already been picked, I guess it's Kane Evans. No, I've gone with, I had 3. I had Montoya, Curran. I actually had Wade Egan as well. Wade Egan, I was not a fan of. I wasn't a fan of him as the season started. His no-look passes out of dummy half last year did me in. But as time went this year, he really started to win me over, and he started to show. He was the one to watch because he had a great running game at Penrith, and we never saw it. And we started to see it towards the end of the season once we had Whenua Blake back and we had Matt Lodge in there, and we had some forwards that actually knew which way to go. He started really contributing, and he won me over by the end of the year. I was all ready to get him out of the team and get just any hooker that was available. But I think he can really build something behind that back, that forward pack.
Just on those two guys too, like on Josh Curran, it kind of makes you wonder what Payton and Kearney didn't see in him to give him very limited game time over the past 2 seasons. And then just on Wade Egan kind of reminds me of Michael Leisha, who was a good running number 9 when he was at Cronulla. And then when they did the swap and he went to Canterbury, Des Hasler put his running game in his pocket, told, I don't want you to run, I just want you to feed. And he never really took off at the Bulldogs because he was never able to play his natural game. Rob, who did you look at as your big improvers for us this season?
Yeah, well, you guys have said all 3 of mine, but I'll just touch on it again. Josh Curran, I mean, obviously, improved out of sight this year. As we said, that game against the Dragons was his first game back in the first grade team, and he had a blinder that day and just kept it up. As you said, Richie, the nice combination that he's got with Reece Walsh, he set up quite a few tries for him. That was really exciting. He mentioned when we had him on a few weeks ago that Brownie really gave him a good kick up the bum at the start of the year, and it might have been, it seems like it sort of lit the fire, and that's what he needed, exactly what he needed. Yeah, I also had Wade Egan as well. Like Brad said, I think he had a much improved season, and as he said, you started to see a few different facets of his game, other than the no look pass. So yeah. So those are my improvers.
He's just so good defensively in that middle third of the field too. His tackle efficiency is up, close to or over 90%. So, and he proved that he could play the 80 minutes, which is good because Jazz hates playing hooker, as we know. You guys have touched on it, and I've got this guy as an unsung hero, but and you've touched on him in this the discussion about the improvers. But for me, I had two unsung heroes of our season, and they were Marcelo Montoya and Sean O'Sullivan, and for two, completely different reasons. I know we signed Montoya. I questioned why we'd signed him. He hadn't really stood out for me at the Bulldogs as a reliable, first grade player. I kind of thought, okay, he's going to be a player, and that's all he's going to be. Won't get much game time. And then once, we had a couple of injuries and he got his first opportunity, he grabbed it with both hands. And he was so good this year that he won the Warriors Clubman of the Year award, which is no surprise. He put in 100% every game. His runs were spot on and really, really, brought the ball back well. He backed up really, really well. And then Sean O'Sullivan, as a stop half, knew his role was always just a stopgap half. He wasn't the number one man, and that was clearly pointed out to him when they went for Chad Townsend for the back end of the season. But he's the guy that between his legs and shirk away from his responsibilities. He played 12 games for us this year. He was a halfback in those three successive wins that we got, and he ran for over 100 metres in every game he played, except for the last game of the season. No one ran for 100 metres except for Lodge, I think, in that game. So, they were the two unsung heroes for me, the guys that, played really, really well, but really they don't get the accolades from the fans. How about you, Rob? Who stood out for you in that respect of guys that, probably outperformed what you expected?
I had the exact same two guys as you. Montoya and Sean O'Sullivan. As you said, he was a fringe first grader at the Bulldogs, and even when he played in the trials, I'm thinking, they gave him a lot of minutes in the trials, and we're thinking, why are they doing that for someone that's probably only going to be a replacement winger at best? But as you said, he came in, he grabbed his opportunity with two hands. He was so solid. I don't remember him dropping a bomb all year. He was so solid under the high ball, strong kick returns, and his energetic runs, which earned him the nickname Hectic Montoya from us.
Yeah,
we were big fans of Montoya, and Sean O'Sullivan. Again, I didn't expect too much from him and didn't expect that he would play a big role. But when he did come into the first grade team, he performed admirably. And as someone said earlier, he made his debut in that Raiders game, had a really good, a strong game, and played through that series of three consecutive wins. And I would have been happy to have him, to retain him, his services at the club, but looks like that isn't to be.
Yeah, his choice, not the club's, the sounds of things. Apai, who did you see as unsung heroes, guys to watch, that kind of thing?
Yeah, look, I'm unfortunately going to follow you guys. And I'll just quickly, the reason why with Montoya, I was just very pleased with the intensity he brought to the team and just his carries as well. No handbrakes with him, which was good to see. And with Sean O'Sullivan again, just being that player who just stood up every time, win or lose. He definitely gave it his all, and I can't be disappointed with how he played. And I think both those players were unsung for me personally.
Yeah, same. I guess you're heading on the same line. I'm going to pick some. That's why I'm leaving.
Brad's going to pick Kane Evans. Yeah, no, I agree with you three completely, but so I'll go a different way. Wade Egan for me. If you go into some Warriors fan pages on Facebook, he quite often cops a bit of flack whenever he plays. Probably mainly because he's not Brandon Smith or Damien Cook or someone like that. But not a lot of teams have a hooker like that. But like you mentioned earlier, Mark, his defensive work is top notch. He always puts up big numbers and tackles with not a lot of misses. I'd hate to think what we'd be like up the middle if he wasn't there. And kind of like what Brad touched on as well, he picked up nicely as the season went on, and by the end of it was in some pretty nice form. And I think he goes a little bit unappreciated by our fan base in some corners.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. And Brad, throw some forwards at me.
I've got two forwards. I agree with all your guys' selections. But I'll go with the Fairy out the back first. So I've got Dallin. I was quite hesitant when we brought him in. I like him, but I was like, I don't know. It's always hard to judge these guys. Montoya's in the same boat. When they've been with the Bulldogs, it's hard to judge them as players because the Bulldogs have been rubbish for so long. It's really hard to judge if a player is just bad or just it's the environment. And I think he, like Montoya, he hasn't put a foot wrong, I feel, with the Warriors since he joined. He knows his role. He hasn't come here going, I'm going to be the fullback. He's happy to be a winger, which is very hard to come by with some of these bigger names. Even Josh Adokar is saying he doesn't want to be a winger. So I think he's done well, but we're all here for forwards. That's all that this game is about. I picked your boyfriend Jazz.
Nice.
I think he's the toughest player the Warriors have. He's the smallest one too. He's a midget, but I wouldn't take him on in a fight, that's for sure. I don't understand why he was left out of the 17 as often as he was. I questioned it. I would have sacked Nathan Brown for it, in my opinion. Seeing him as the 18th man was ridiculous in my eyes. He gives you 100% when he's out there. But the main one for me was Bunty. Bunty started this year being told he wasn't wanted. And he took it on the chin saying, no, I'm staying. I'm going to prove my worth. And he got a contract extension. I can't commend him any more than that. To go from we don't see you in our future to we want you to stay just shows how good he was. He's not, like you said, he's not like your Fanua Blakes and stuff, but he's just that change of pace. I think I mentioned it in one of my reviews. I put it to Fanua Blake is your Steve Price, Bunty's your Paliacino. You've got a guy that will consistently get you those meters, but then when people are tiring, you want that punch, and he delivers that punch, and hopefully he builds on it for next year, because there are some very good front rowers in this team now. So you have to be at your top if you want to be in the 17.
On that analogy of Adam Fanua-Blake being your Steve Price and Bunty's your Ifaka Paliacina, does that make Kane Evans your Jesse Royal? Is that how you look at it?
Yes.
100%.
Why did you bring that man in? He was a joke of a footballer. Just don't even get me started.
Can I? I'll go off script a little bit here, then, boys, because Brad brought up something that was a really good point, which I'll throw back at. Nathan Brown's bench rotation and selections, team selections during the year. And Brad said, Bunty, there was a couple of games I went to live and Bunty sat on the bench for, nearly 65 minutes before he got on the field. And obviously he was, stressed. He kept asking the trainers, when am I going on? He kept looking up the top to where Brownie was. He wasn't utilised enough. Jazz, there was a couple of games where he was benched. There was 2 games where they made him 18th man. And I think one of those games was the all-important which game was it? I think it was a game where we had a couple of injuries, and he would have been, perfect to have out on the field. How and I'll throw this to Brad, because how did you feel about his forward rotations from the bench this year?
I didn't like it. I think the biggest problem, and something they need to work on, is this Warriors team performs really well when you've got Lodge and Fanua Blake out there together, but then you take them off together as well and the team falls apart, and we saw that. They need to figure out a way to keep one of them on at all times. If that means sacrificing having them out there at the same time, so be it. They need at least one of those guys out there, because the next one's down, your Afoa, your JTBs, they don't give that same level of impact. But if you pair them with one of those guys, it will be fine. So even if it's a Fanua Blake starts, he comes off, Lodge comes on, or something. I don't know. I couldn't be a coach. I'd be a terrible coach.
They've both proven that they can play long minutes, and Fanua Blake more so than Lodge. He plays long minutes. So, maybe they can start, putting my coach hat on now, maybe they can start together, and you give Lodge a rest at the 20-minute mark, and you play Fanua Blake through to half time, and then, Fanua Blake plays the next, 5 minutes or 10 minutes in the second half. Lodge comes on to finish out the game, and then you bring Fanua Blake back in 10 minutes. Because you're right. The other guys, they've got a job to do, but we just didn't get, and I've got some further down in our list of discussion points where we'll talk about a couple of our forwards and so forth. But it's with both of them off the field, it is a massive noticeable difference, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think going on to that, I think they don't need to rotate second rowers as much. We have second rowers that can play 80 minutes, so you can use your rotation solely for the front row if needed. And I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think, Apai, on Brownie's bench rotation? Were you a fan of it or against it?
Look, well, yes and no. I mean, in the context of our season, obviously there were some injuries too that we had to sort of try and work around. Unfortunately, I'll say though that I think our forward definitely needs to play more minutes personally. And I agree with what you said regarding Adam Fanua Blake and Lodge. I think that those guys need to be, at the field at least. Both of them or one of them at least. And I think Ben Murdoch-Marcelo is probably a victim of that poor sort of rotation as well. I personally thought he was probably better off coming off the bench personally, especially when the opposition were tired. However, a lot of times he started some games and even started as prop as well. But again, that probably had a lot to do with injuries. But yeah, my thoughts on it was, not too impressed, but at the same time, sort of just a bit lenient, understanding reasons why some games.
Yeah, Richie, same kind of thoughts.
Yeah, you guys said it pretty well, actually. Yeah, I think with a few of them, injuries may have forced his hand, but the Lodge and Fanua Blake thing, once Lodge got there, it was quite evident when Lodge and AFB were playing together. When one of them went off or both of them went off, we had a real dip in what our forwards were producing. And the Jazz Tavanga thing, he was being left out of the squad, I think 2 or 3 times this year for Kane Evans. So Brad and I were, we were at odds about that one. We couldn't really believe what we were seeing. Surely Jazz offers you a little bit more, and definitely throws better hands. That's for sure.
Yeah. Obviously. Tohu back from injury and BMM back from injury changes a lot of that as well. How did you see it, Rob? If you were coach, how would you change it?
Yeah, it was a bit of a bizarre one. Almost like he was experimenting with the team every week and just looking at getting different balances with the forwards and that kind of thing, and seeing what works and what doesn't work. And probably most of it didn't work. So like you saw in that Raiders game, we completely at the end of the season we completely fell off a cliff when AFB and Matt Lodge were off the field. It just completely, was evident that wasn't working. So I don't know. Hopefully, all that experimentation has led him to the point where he knows what his ideal pack is and what his rotations are, and the minutes that he's going to give to forwards. Yeah.
Moving on to something positive, boys. Stars of the future. We debuted quite a few young, talented players this year, in amongst some other guys who obviously made their debut for the club, senior players. I'll throw to you, Apai. Aside from Reece Walsh, give me one player who you think could be a star of the future.
Look, apart from the obvious, I think for me, one to look out for is Rocco Berry. Now, bearing in mind that he can hopefully stay on the field longer, due to injuries. But I think defensively, he's been very, very good for us. I think he works well. And obviously coming from a union background, he sort of understands the defensive structure of being a centre, I think, automatically. And offensively as well, I think there were some games there where he did show some good things there. And for me personally, he's probably like number one on my checklist for someone to look out for. And I think someone who'll play a pivotal role, heading into our long-term future. So, Rocco Berry.
Yeah. How about you, Rich?
Oh, I've just seen a comment pop up from Mark Roberts, who kind of agrees with what I sort of agree with. I love the look of Tom Ale and Valère as well. Those guys, to me, look like, they've got something pretty special about them. I just love the vigor with which they both run, and our side looks like those guys will be fringe guys for a while, but hopefully if they see some game time and get an opportunity, they grasp it. Because I like the look of them. I'm a big fanboy of Rocco Berry, so I would have said him too. But I think he's going to be something special as well.
How about you, Rob? Who do you see as a definite star of the future?
Yeah, a couple, obviously Berry excites me because I think he really still is to grow into his body. And I think when he puts a bit more size on, I reckon he'll end up like Simon Mannering. I think he'll end up in the second row at some point. But he did look the goods a couple of games. He scored a nice try against the Panthers, running a good line. And so I'm excited because centre is a position that we have struggled in for a while. And if he can make that his own, and that'll solidifying the side and the back line. I'm going to go with Otakolo. I know he didn't get a lot of game time, but from what they've said and what I've heard about him it's probably, I think he made 2 appearances in first grade for us this year, 2 or 3. But they said he's got a really good running game, and they said that's his biggest asset. And it reminded me of Aaron Jeremiah when we had him in the 2011. He was pivotal in that run to the grand final in 2011. These little darts out of dummy half, and that just excited me because we haven't had that in a while. And even though we just spoke about Egan kind of building or warming into his running game, but if we could have a tandem hook, like Otakolo come off the bench and running at the tied forwards, like what we've kind of wanted Cody to do. So that's an exciting one for me for the future.
I'm just going to list a few before I throw to Brad, and he can tell us why Reece Walsh is our Lord and Saviour. For me, I agree with you boys. I've got a couple of names here. Rocco Berry, obviously, he's still learning the game. He comes from a union background, but he's a big, robust centre. And you said Simon Mannering. He reminds me of a young Joey Manu. Big, can break tackles, and I've also put in that frame Viliami Vailea, another one like Berry, young, talented, learning the game. He got a couple of opportunities. He looked good when he played. And for me, it looks like the Warriors have finally cottoned onto the fact that having the big guys out on the wing isn't the the key to success. You look at all the successful sides, and they've got speed out on the wings, and that's something that we really haven't had. We've had these big units, that can crash over close to the line at that end of the field, or bring the ball out from our end of the field. But in between that, they really have no massive use. The game's changed a lot since Big Manu was on the wing, but Manu had a lot of pace as well. Manu was very quick for a big man, whereas Ken and Fuss were never lightning speed men. But having two centres, having two big centres like Rockeri and Valea on the inside of a guy like Watini Zelezniak, who's got some speed, I think is a good push forward. Again, Otakolo, is a great talent. I don't think there's big raps on him. I don't think we saw enough of him. Apparently he's got a really good running game, and we really didn't see that. Tom Ale. Tom Ale played really well in the back end of the season for the Redcliffe Dolphins, was consistently man of the match. And Ed Cozy was another one who got, I think, his time in first grade earlier than he should have. And, some of his deficiencies in reading a game and positional play, particularly in defence, he got found out a little bit. So, but in talking to him in the last couple of weeks, he just wants to put in a good off-season and learn and keep developing. So it's good that these young guys have got that. But, Brad, tell us why Reece Walsh is our Lord and Saviour.
Before I get into the most obvious answer, you've gone through my whole list, bar one. And we've just got a comment about him. Kind of goes against what you just said about your winger, but one of my guys is Junior Ratuva. He would have played this year instead of Kossi if he didn't get injured. He's a big kid, which goes into that thing, but the kid's fast. Admittedly, a lot of the footage I've got to see is against lesser competition in the NRL, but he was in the Melbourne Storm camp for a reason. And I think he's one of those big, fast wingers that a lot of teams have. So I really want to see him get back. I had a bit of a heart attack when I saw the Warriors had released him. But they had released him from this year and he was back next year because I was panicking that we'd lost a guy for good. But, he's one of my guys. But, Reece Walsh, pun fully intended, as long as he keeps his nose clean. He should. He is the future of the club as long as they can keep him here. My biggest worry with him is it's very similar to the Maloneys and stuff. We'll build him up, and then he'll go and earn squillions somewhere else. But I'm hoping that that's not the case. Especially with what's just gone on with his dramas off the field. Hopefully that's the Warriors helping him through that and getting him through that builds something with him where he wants to stick around. But money talks. But I'm still think he's got the potential that if it gets to that point, you pay him what he wants to stay. But keep the lolly bags away and keep them away from the Storm.
I agree, mate. He's the guy that we've got to build our team around for the future. I'm looking forward to, him linking up with Sean Johnson next year. Be a lethal combination. But in regards to what you said about, hopefully, what the Warriors are doing for him off the field, he repays us and re-signs. That didn't really work with Kieran Foran, did it? No. We got his back together and he was gone. I had Junior Ratuva. I just had a list of a couple of guys that were ones to watch for the future, and Junior Ratuva was in that list, along with Pride Pedersen-Rabadi, Isaiah Vungana, Big Joe Vungana's son, and also Jairus Glomazena. There are a couple of young guys that Isaiah Vungana did this year, so he went back to New Zealand to do some rehab. But the other guys all got a little bit of game time up at Redcliffe, so hopefully they're in our development squads and they can move forward. Best purchases of the year, and I'm pretty sure you guys will cover this, so I won't need to. I've got probably 4 guys as the standout purchases from the season, whether it be pre-season or during the season. Apai, give me one guy who you thought was a really good purchase for the club moving forward.
Yeah, look, I probably won't touch on the obvious personally. I think Adam Blake definitely for me personally. Yeah.
How about you, Brad? One for you.
Yeah. Since you stole my one with Fanua Blake, I'm going to go with Lodge.
Yep.
He's got a lot of dramas off the field, but put that aside, I think he's really. But I think it's a bit like Hetherington. I think there's a big bias on him in terms of those suspensions that he was getting this year.
Yep.
If he had Cleary as his last name, he wouldn't have got anything. But I think his combination with Fanua Blake gives the Warriors one of the best prop combos in the comp. And
I think so too.
As long as he can get the refs on his side a bit, I think he will do good things. And he just seems determined to prove everyone that's written him off wrong, which I really like.
Yeah.
Pulling the fingers at the crowd, I know people were upset with that. I didn't mind. We've seen enough players do it. Willie Mason has pulled the fingers at me and Richie at a Warriors game at Mount Smart, and no one even talked about it. It's just the way the world's changed, I know, but I think I had a members event where we had a Q&A with Tohu Harris and Ben Murdoch-Masilla, and one part we haven't covered, they talked about, it's great you guys and everyone going to the games and supporting them when they're stuck in Australia, but they said basically every game they got booed. And you're telling me at the very last game you're getting pantsed, you're getting booed by all those guys, you're going to react, unfortunately. It's better. He could have tried to bash someone, off the field, which is a Lodge specialty. But pulling fingers ain't too bad. So, I'm going with him because Fanua Blake was taken.
It's weird, isn't it? He gets fined for his finger to the fan, but I remember last year the red-headed Nufty from Canberra did it, and nothing was done.
He was praised.
Last year
he was praised for his passion.
Last year we had Merch throw the boot, and he got fined and suspended, sin binned as well. And then this year, Will Chambers does it, throws it 5 rows into the thing, and all the Fox Sports commentators tell us what a character he is. So, Richie, who to you was a standout purchase for our club?
Oh, yeah, before I get to that, just on your story, Brad, about Big Willie poking the finger at us, he chose to poke the finger instead of run it straight. Oh, take from that what you will. I say he was scared. But for me, Montoya, just in terms of output, what he gave us in output versus the the price tag we paid for him, I think that's a heck of a bargain buy, and he delivered a lot. So, for me, there are probably bigger name signings out there, but in terms of output versus paycheck, it's a pretty solid signing.
How about you, Rob? Who stood out for you?
I'm going to say Dallin Watene-Zelezniak, mostly because we brought him in for a specific reason. We needed speed. We had, as you guys touched on earlier, like the big winger is a bit of a thing of the past now. And we quickly realised that, and that was the reason why we moved Ken on, and we wanted speed. And he brought that. He was very solid for us. And most of the tries that he scored, I don't think Ken or Fuss would have scored, due to his speed and his finishing abilities. So I think he'll be a very important signing, especially with Walsh out for the first month or so of next season.
Yeah, well, I'm going to say Walsh. I think Walsh was, for the young kid, for everything that he brought to the club, there was a lot of excitement when we first signed him, and then, for the Broncos to tell him that he wasn't in their plans for this season just goes to show how inept they were until Ben Eichen got there. What he did in his opening couple of games were just freak. He reminds me a lot of James Maloney in terms of If he makes a mistake on the field, he doesn't sweat it. There was the game against the Tigers, I think he went for a long cutout ball, didn't come off, but the very next time he got down there, he went for the long cutout ball and put Roger over in the corner. And it's that kind of thing that we need. He just reminds me of a Jimmy Wins type of guy. So, but I agree with everyone else that you guys said. They were the lists that I had as well, all those guys as well. A couple of things that I've added to the rundown sheet that I said before we went live that I would. Just a couple of like the biggest disappointments of the season, and I know you guys aren't prepared for this, so I'm just going to run through the list of things that I've got, and then I'll open for you guys to comment or add if anything. And this is in no particular order. For me, Bailey Sirenen. I was full of praise for Bailey Sirenen coming to the club. Loved the way he played at Souths, but I don't think he really hit the heights of expectation that we thought we were going to get with Bailey Sirenen this year. I know he played a lot of the season injured. After every game, he was either in a moon boot or a shoulder sling. But for me, I thought he was, of all our off-season buys and that, he was disappointing and kind of confused me that he kept getting picked ahead of other guys in our starting squad every week. Kane Evans, I questioned him being purchased at the beginning of the year. I questioned him being purchased mid-season, and I still question him being purchased now. For me, it's just wasted contract money. Look, the guy's a lovely bloke off the field, very funny, very personable, but on the field, he offers no real go forward for us. His post-contact meters were virtually nothing. And obviously, as we all know, he can't throw a punch, and his tough guy image has been obliterated by himself. And then there's a couple of other ones. Petahiku not being re-signed, I thought was a big disappointment. We've spoken about Brownie's bench rotations, and in particular, Bunty Afoa's lack of use, considering the impact that he does bring off the bench. Jack Murchie, who I thought was a revelation last year for us, not getting much game time at all this year, which really confused me. And then probably JTB and Eli Katoa, who were both, vying for that Rookie of the Year last year. JTB actually won our club Rookie of the Year, but again, Katoa seemed to get injured every game. He didn't have that. It's almost like he's forgotten how to run a line, whereas last year he was a really good hole runner. This year he was more prepared to run straight at the defender. And JTB, bit disappointing, really didn't offer the go forward that we thought. I know they say front rowers don't mature until, 26, 27, 28, and JTB's only a young kid. But when you look at him compared to other front rowers in the comp, Payne Haas, for instance, you can't keep using that age thing as the factor. Any of you guys think of anything else or want to add to that? Brad, you got anything to add or any other disappointments for you?
Yeah, you sprung this on us last minute. So as we were there, I started writing stuff down, and I've got a massive list, but I've been crossing them off. So I had Kane Evans as well. Unfortunately, he's probably the only NRL player that feels as like if it was watching me play. But I don't get paid for a right reason. So I had him on there, but I want to go off players. Mount Smart getting cancelled. Couldn't be helped, but that was devastating. That felt like a breakup when I got that news. I was in a state. I didn't even want to write about the Warriors. When I heard that, I was just done. And then Tony Kemp. I want to bring up. Tony Kemp's been getting on my nerves. He's getting a lot of media attention over here now because he feels like that guy that got dumped and takes every moment he can to shit on his ex. That's Salty all Kemp. It feels like. Yeah. I don't mind people's opinions. I know I'm not going to agree or disagree with people all the time. But when he started talking about Wade Egan, you're not going to survive with a guy like Wade Egan because he can't tackle. And he's one of our better tacklers.
Yeah.
That where he lost it all for me there. It's like, it's not even looking at the facts. And like talking about like bringing in Lodge and his son and that. His son, we got it on a dirt minimum wage deal, which isn't nepotism in my eyes. If we signed Sean O'Sullivan for $1 million a year, that would be the issue. And then he came out again this week and rubbish the Warriors' handling of Reece Walsh and the cocaine saga and saying that we threw the kid under the bus. And I don't think they did. I think they got out in front of it. Cameron George said on your show last week that they got to control the narrative and they let him own it and they're getting him the help he needed. That's better than Melbourne, where they said our guys don't even know what that stuff was and stuff. It promotes the ability to cock up again because they're not taking responsibility. So I used to listen to him on a podcast every week and I stopped because he was just always just trying to say stuff. Disgruntled, like they're in the comments saying, a disgruntled ex-employee. So that was it really. Since you took all my other ones,
he came out at the beginning of the year too, and he in an article in an interview he said, the Warriors should really look. Johnson was off contract. The Warriors should really look at Sean Johnson. They should look at getting him for dirt cheap price. Blah blah blah. And then when him, they ridiculed the club for signing him.
Yeah.
He's an absolute clown. Apai, any of those things that Brad and I brought up, anything to add or any comments on those disappointments?
Look, for me personally, probably just players. You touched on them. One was JTB. For someone of his size and obviously again second-year experience, I sort of gave him the benefit of the doubt last year regarding his meters he made, right? Because you sort of, I thought he sort of excelled in other areas. However, this year I think I was disappointed primarily because of the fact that he had a lack of go forward, really. And I don't know why for someone that big. That's just sort of what I'm looking at. And you made that comparison with Payne Haas, which I think is spot on. Like if Payne Haas can do it and the age, what's his sort of excuse for someone that big? I'm not sure why. Another one as well, again, personally, Shania Harris-Tavita. And the only reason why I sort of say that, again, was just this season here, short, obviously you got to take in the injuries as well. But then just for me, just maybe some of the game planning, the game management, I thought there were times when he could have, I think, sort of led us around the park a bit better. And again, that's coming from somebody who actually sees him as a future for us as well. I actually am a big fan of his, and I just want him to sort of get over that little hurdle there. And last one as well, I think for me was defense, full stop. Our defense just collectively just below par, just rubbish. So, yeah.
Anything to add, Rich?
I really agree with Brad about the Mount Smart thing. When they announced they were going to bring a game back, I was looking forward to reigniting old times with Brad and running amok in the Woodstock tent for the game and then going to get a chicken and chips and then telling the old lady behind us to watch her blood pressure. In terms of players, for me, Cody Nikarima, probably. We lost a lot of games on halves, not probably icing the game and directing us out of a tough situation. And in terms of playing experience, the number of years he's played now, he should have been one of our, more senior players in that department. And I feel like he only delivered in brief stints and then was anonymous for a lot of the rest of the season.
Yeah. Rob, anything to add, mate?
In terms of players, I thought Adam Pompey started the year really well, but then when he signed his contract extension, he kind of deteriorated a bit as well. Last year he proved me wrong. I wasn't a big fan of his, and the back end of last year he was really strong on the wing. I'm thinking maybe the wing is more his position than centre.
Yeah.
Like I said, once he signed his deal, his form seemed to deteriorate. So hopefully he can rediscover some of that 2020 magic. In terms of the team, though, the biggest disappointment is a continued ability to control momentum swings. And it's plagued us for years, but we still can't get it right. It's like the second that the momentum turns in the game, we're gone. We fold like a deck of cards, you know. So again, something we have to work out.
I'm just looking for some notes, boys. Sorry. What did you think? I remember talking to Josh Gage last year. We were talking about Jermaine Tanell-Brown. I don't want to pick on Maney, but we likened him to a guy that just didn't know how big he was. And if he just learnt to run a little bit harder with a little bit more energy and he would surprise himself, I think, by breaking that first line of defence. But it just seems like it's something that he just hasn't come along, and that has been really disappointing. How would you rate the recruitment that we've had on a scale of 1 to 10 for this, not leading into next year, because we really haven't we've only purchased 2 players, I think. But Rob, how would you rate our recruitment for this season?
Recruitment-wise, it's been fairly good. I'd give a solid 7 out of 10. More hits than misses, I would say, this year. When one can stay on the field, and like we've gotten the big names to the club. We've gotten guys like Fanua Blake. Sorry, we got guys like, we picked up big names like Matt Lodge, and we've got Sean Johnson coming back, and so we're not struggling to attract players like we used to. I think at the start of 2020, we couldn't get anyone except Egan. And O'Sullivan's done a great job of being able to attract the talent. But that's converting that into on-field success is a challenge.
Yeah. Apai, how did you look at did you rate our recruitment?
Yeah, look, similar to what Robert said, if we can sort of stay, as a fit unit, I think would be dangerous. But it's some very good signing heading into next season, and obviously for this season as well. For me, I'll probably give them a 7 as well. Can't really complain. It's just a matter of having a really, like an injury-free squad. Fingers crossed. So yeah.
I think that's a key. How about you, Rich?
I actually really like a lot of our signings. I would have gone at 8, but I think I might pull it down to a 7.5 just because of Kane Evans. Look, we've got people like Lodge. Walsh is obviously a massive one. I mean, when's the last time you've seen us pull off a signing like a young bloke like Walsh who goes on to be selected for Queensland after only a handful of games? I don't know that we've ever seen that sort of thing in our club. Obviously, AFB, Ewan Aitken, we had some really, really, really good signings. Montoya, we got bang for buck signings. So, I'm going to go 7.5.
Brad?
Cowards. 8. It would have been 8. It would have been higher if Kane Evans wasn't there. I've gone 8 because we got, you've got a bona fide superstar in the making. You got some legitimate front row talent. But it was also how they got some of them. We've got some players on next to nothing with their former club paying the bill. So that type is why I've upped my recruitment up, because they've done some shrewd recruiting in that aspect where we're actually getting our bang for buck instead of the cliche paying overs for every player we get.
I agree. I had an 8, and for those exact reasons that we were able to attract some big name players to the club. We were able to do it without having to pay overs and, topping out our salary cap. The fact that we've brought Sean Johnson back to the club as well is a big thing. I think Aaron Penne going into next year is going to be in the mix for a spot in our squad. He did quite well at Melbourne. Lodge having half of his salary paid by the Broncos. Thank you very much. The Broncos seeing nothing in Reece Walsh. Thank you very much. Fanua Blake choosing to come to the Warriors. Marcelo Montoya. I thought our recruitment was outstanding. I rated an 8, and our season's a lot of sliding door moments and what ifs that, if we were able to keep consistent 17-man squad every single week, then maybe we could have had a different end result. Because that's what Penrith did. Penrith were one of those sides that had no injuries. The Roosters, on the other hand, were the team that was the exception to the rule, which, so many injuries. I think they ended up almost having a whole North Sydney Bears reserve grade squad playing there at one stage, but still managing to get wings. What was your favourite moment of the season, Rich? Anything?
Yeah, I think I touched on it earlier in the show, but the RTS try saver for me against Canberra, hard to go past that. It's a pretty epic moment, and and when you look over our whole season, I think that one brought me the most sort of elation and got me out of my chair.
Yeah. How about you, Apai?
Yeah, I guess for me, obviously, I mentioned it myself as well. Just that Reece Walsh try against the Cowboys where he's running down the sideline and it's Helam Luki who's sort of trying to grab him there and he still touches it down. It just showed in a nutshell what he's capable of and why, as Brad touched on as well, whenever negotiations come to the table, we give him what he wants. He's the future for sure. Love that. Yeah.
How about you, Brad?
Yeah, well, with Walsh, when it's up, we're just going to make him Prime Minister as well to keep him here. We'll do whatever it takes. But for me, I've got two, so I'm going to cheat. First one's just a quick one. Having BMM as the leading try scorer for a large patch of the season, as the president of his fan club, that brought me pride. I love that man to death, and we would have beautiful babies. That's all I'm saying. But my one's actually Sean Johnson's announcement. Rich and I were actually at Mount Smart when the news broke that he was leaving, because that was the night they were doing the members forum. So it was great timing because you had a whole lot of members there demanding why Sean was going, and we actually got stopped by a news team, wasn't it?
It was News Hub.
Yeah, News Hub outside asking our opinions, and I basically said, good riddance. Basically said I think it was best for both if he left, good for him and good for the club. And so I was quite happy to see the back of him at that time. And then when I was in a meeting at work when the news broke that he had signed, and the feeling I got was not one I expected. It was a feeling of happiness that the Warriors haven't given me all year. So I was quite surprised. That's why it's my favorite moment, because I was surprised by it. Getting him home, and he probably should have never left, but it's, I guess you could say, a shrewd business move by the club. They let him go when he was on like $1 million a year, and they've got him at a good price now. So that's my favorite moment, is getting SJ back. We'll talk in a couple of months if that's a good thing or not.
How about you, Rob? I've got a feeling I might know what yours is, maybe.
Oh, look, going to round 1 and round 6 with you was actually a real highlight of the year, being able to go to some live games. Sorry to all you guys who haven't been able to go to the games, but that was really awesome to be able to be there in round 1 and do it again in round 6. But on field, I'm going to say Reece Walsh's debut. I mean, I know we got pumped by Melbourne, but I've just never come away from a 40-point loss feeling so excited about the future. And I just always it's one of the greatest Warriors debuts, even though it was in a bit of a flogging, but just what he showed, what he could do, and what he, the excitement for the future.
Yeah, mate, I'm kind of along the same lines. One was a personal one for me because that was the first time that you and I had actually attended a Warriors game together, which was great. Magic round. That was everything that I expected it to be and so much more. Such a great weekend away. And then a couple of things. Another off-field one that personally I didn't take part in was the farewell haka for Roger when he left the Warriors to head back to New Zealand. I just thought the respect that was shown from those the Parramatta, Raiders, Bulldogs and Rabbitohs players that were in there, that hub. It was just showed the level of respect that he had within the game, and it was quite fitting. 2 on-field ones for me. RTS's try-saving try in that Raiders game, outstanding. But the one that is probably going to surprise everyone was our effort against Penrith, against all odds with no bench, just showing the character of the players that were on that field. I mean, in that game, we had guys like, I think Bailey Surinam was playing halfback because we'd lost. I can't even remember who we'd lost in the game. Josh Curran had to shift out to the centres. It was. I think it was just that game personified how I envisaged the team should be in terms of character, and gives us something to build on for next year, I guess. Final thing, boys. Season rating out of like A, B, C, D, E, F. What would you give the rating for the season? I'll start with you, Apai. Overall season rating.
Yeah, look, for me personally, again, considering injuries and signings and all that stuff there, losses as well, wins. I think I give it a C, personally. I give the season a C. Only because, again, lackluster moments we could have won, we didn't. Defense was an issue, injuries. But then I suppose at the same time, C, because I think there's a bit of hope, hopefully heading into next year as well. So we'll see how that goes there. But yeah, I give it a C for me.
Richie?
I gave it a C as well. Look, I mean, it's another season where we don't make the finals. And if you look at it purely results based, I could probably go a little harsher. But when you throw in certain mitigating factors like our injury toll and struggling to put the same field on the park 2 weeks in a row, so we really struggle for combinations. I think I bring our mark up to a C. It's another season not in the finals, but I think given all of those factors, it could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, I agree. How about you, Brad?
Honestly, a C's a pass mark, guys. Come on. I've gone C minus. We're putting it. I'm so much more of a rebel by going by 1.5 worse than you guys. It's a C minus for me. They didn't make the 8, which is a fail for me. But those issues that they had, the injuries and not everything you just said, contributed to that as well. So that's why I've just put them under the pass mark. But yeah, if you'd asked me, it would have been an F straight after that Titans game when I was done. But I wrote my season review not that long ago, and I had taken some time to kind of let it settle, and I'm a bit more optimistic about the future now. So yeah, C minus for me.
Rob, what do you have?
Yeah, I went a C minus as well, to be honest, because like you're saying, C is a pass mark. I'm like, I don't know if we deserve a pass mark. As you guys have all said, we didn't. It was another season where we didn't make the finals, and I felt we really went backwards from 2020 under Todd Payton. But yeah, there's a few other things to take into account. Another season stuck in Australia, the injury toll, and there were some positive moments. The Reece Walsh emergence and some of the other young guys getting a bit more game time. So there is plenty of reason to be optimistic about 2022. So yeah, C minus for me.
I went harsher than you guys. I initially had a D, and then brought it up to a C minus because I thought long and hard about this, and there was some things that I thought really contributed to the season as a whole. The split preseason can't have been easy. The fact that they're living and playing away from New Zealand for the second consecutive season in a row. Considering half our squad hasn't even played at home yet in front of our home fans, the disruptions of mid-season departures, RTS, Leeson, and also Ken Mamalo, plus also the disruption of mid-season purchases like Dallin Watini-Zalesniak and Lodge, Reece Walsh. It looks good for the future, but I think all of these things contributed to a really, really difficult season with no major signings now. Heading into next season, we've got Penne and Sean Johnson coming. We can get a nice, good pre-season behind us. I still think the decision that Roger made at the beginning of the year, even the club handled it so really, really well. I still think it sent a lot of guys in that squad for a bit of a 6. So, for me, I'll say a C- because as Brad and Rob have both pointed out, a C is a pass, and I don't think we pass. But there is a lot to look forward to. For me, heading into next season, anything less than a finals appearance would have to be a F failure based on where we are at the moment. You guys probably agree with that?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
especially with Sean Johnson, Ashley Taylor in our halves, we're going to go all the way. So
don't know what's going on. With that
Look, I know everyone's negative. Richie and I seem to be the only ones that were positive on getting Taylor. So
no, I think he brings. I think without the $1 million price tag on him, without that on the back of his shoulders, he brings a controlled game, a really good kicking game. I think he could be good as either SJ's partner in the halves or a backup if they choose to start him with somebody else in the halves. But I think it's an astute purchase by the club, considering it's a 1-year deal and he doesn't have to leave, Queensland. He's still in his home.
I think it's low risk for both parties. Yeah, I think it. But I still ideally you want Chanel and Sean together, but it gets you that situation like we saw this year when we talked about Sean O'Sullivan. If someone goes down, which Chanel and Sean are both prolific at not lasting the season, having a guy like that in there to come in and experience instead of Cody, is a win for me. But we still still need to wait and hear. Still need to wait and hear if it's official. I keep getting told it is, but we never hear anything properly. So
I know they keep saying it's going to be announced. It's going to be announced, but nothing yet. So I guess we wait and see what happens. That wraps up our season review. I know it's late there in New Zealand, boys. Thanks for sticking with us.
Yeah, thanks for hanging in there, guys.
No worries.
And thanks for Apai. He's half an hour between us down there in South Australia in the heartland of rugby league. Home of the old Rams. It's been a great show tonight, guys. I've really enjoyed having your input. Just quickly before we log off, just remember next week we've got our Women of League show with Georgia Hale, Karina Brown, and NRL journalist Brown coming on the show. The following Wednesday, we've got Warrior, I think can't remember his number, might be 86, 85, PJ Marsh coming on the show for a chat. And then we've got New Zealand's god of rugby league, Mark Graham, coming on the week after that. He was the guy I grew up idolising as a kid. So can't wait for him. And just a quick reminder to everyone that we are on Patreon. If you want to show some support, jump onto Patreon. For as little as $3, you can show your support for us. Shout out to our bronze tier Patreons, which are Daniel Delore, Peregrine, Sean Kurzweil, the Kirch, Nick McKercher, Mary Carter, Fabian Moroa, Siala Afamasunga. It's good to see Siala tonight too. He's been on Facebook.
Great to see you back, mate. Yeah.
Stevie Williams, Christian Catley, and Alf Tuolave. So thank you guys for all your support. Just remember, watch all our shows on Facebook. Go to our video section on the Roo and Hammer page or on YouTube, on our channel on YouTube. Or you can find us on podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple, Google, Breaker, Radio Direct, and iHeartRadio. If you're one of those people that likes listening to stuff the next day, upload everything overnight on Wednesday night heading into Thursday morning, so they're all there to listen to. And Again, follow us on Instagram. That's where a lot of it is. But quickly, just shout out to these boys. Make sure you follow Brad and Richie, the Stand Off on New Zealand Sport Radio. Brad's also got his own Ingers League wrap-up, I think it's called. Is it, Brad?
It is, yeah, on Facebook, Ingers League wrap-up.
Where he talks all things Warriors and Rugby League. And Apai, he's got the Hold the Ball channel on Instagram. He's on YouTube as well. Does a lot of, obviously, Warrior stuff, but he's also big in the world of the Californian Rugby League and the North American Rugby League stuff. So make sure you follow these guys, show them support. It's always great collabing with like-minded people, like-minded Warriors supporters. We love being able to do this with you guys. We value your friendship and your support, and in turn, we obviously support you guys. Thanks again, everyone. And
thanks for all the comments. Sorry we didn't get to all the comments tonight, but there was some really good stuff coming through there. But no, we appreciate all you guys joining us tonight. Yeah,
absolutely. But thanks again, guys. You want to say anything before we log off?
Thanks for having us. It's been fun running the ruler over the season with you fellas, and some nice funny moments in the show. I'll have to watch it back in the morning, but thanks for having us, boys.
Yeah, appreciate it. And you've got my bank account, so just send my payment through, and
his match fees.
I'll come back again, or we'll do a Storm special and just a brown paper bag in the letterbox.
Yeah,
send us your postal address, boys, and we'll send you out a nice Roo and Hammer hat for you as well. You can wear around proudly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks again, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you.
No worries, bro.
Cheers, bye.
Good night, everyone.
You guys have a good night.
Cheers.
Thanks a lot. See you guys.